Hello, Rebecca here, and we're back in the Enchanted Forest book doing some colouring today. I've been working on this with my Faber-Castell watercolour pencils, just pencil, no water, works nice on the paper. So we got this far before, and I would like to make a bit more progress, so I'm going to try a slightly different format today. I hadn't really appreciated how much time it can take to colour one of these pages. So the footage today is actually about an hour's worth of colouring, and I've taken that and sped it up a bit, and I'm recording the audio over the top rather than recording audio as I go along like I have with previous ones. Just thought I'd try a different format and see how that works. Otherwise, I thought today I would talk about my initial reactions and thoughts from my first couple of months of YouTube. There's a lot. I feel like I've learned a lot in the last couple of months. It's something that I decided to tackle and learn as I go. Quite often I like to learn how to do a thing before I start trying to do it. I'll watch tutorials on a new drawing technique or sculpting or whatever before I actually get the bits and pieces and have a go. With YouTube, I figured this is kind of something you need to jump in and do, and you will learn a lot as you go. You'll find out what works for you and what doesn't by just doing it. It's not something that you can fully learn how to do ahead of time, or at least not in a short period of time anyway. I think there's useful skills you can pick up ahead of time, things you can research how to do. I could have looked into editing a bit more, but even that, maybe it's just that I learn better by doing. So yeah, I jumped in, and I do feel like in the first month or so, I've just been jamming information into my brain. So much information, especially on the editing. And I thought there's a few little, just really basic bits of information that might be useful to somebody else to hear about before they jump in. You can find all sorts of videos of, 5 tips for beginners, 5 things you must know before starting YouTube. But even watching some of those, well, for starters, you do find they start to overlap a bit, and then you lose interest in watching more because you figure you're just going to hear the same thing. But also, even some of the things that are said as tips for beginners aren't necessarily as basic as some of the things I feel I've learned in the first month or two. So I'm just going to talk through some bits and pieces, I guess. One thing you may come across if you're looking at making videos is the advice that video is important, but audio kind of more important. As much as we think of YouTube as a visual medium, at the end of the day, people are more willing to accept bad visuals than they are bad audio. You can watch a slightly rough, low-resolution video if the audio is fine, but you can have a beautiful, stunning video, and if the audio is crackly and scratchy and poppy and horrible, you don't want to listen to it. So audio is actually as much, if not more important than video. That's a useful thing to know, and almost certainly something you'll hear in those other tips of videos. My experience with that so far, I started out using the microphone on my headset. It's a nice headset. It's something I use for gaming. I sit and chat with people on Discord, and as far as I was aware, that was pretty reasonable audio pickup. And it meant that I can sit and chat away while I'm doing some colouring or whatever, and just record the audio while I'm doing it. What I hadn't appreciated was how sensitive the pickup on my mic was to very slight differences in position. So my volume through my headset mic was really quiet sometimes if I was talking kind of quietly, or if I just happened to have the mic a millimetre further away from my face that day, which is really awkward when you then go back to edit. And you can do a certain amount of increasing volume, but there comes a point where there's no clarity. You don't have clear audio, you've just got loud, muffled audio. It's strange. But it wasn't great. It would work sometimes, but other times I'd record and think, oh, this sounds really patchy, or it's just fading out. I can't hear what I was saying very well because I was just talking quietly to myself whilst doing a colouring. So then I changed to using my phone. Strangely enough, a phone is designed to pick up voices pretty well. So the audio quality on my phone is actually a lot better than through my headset mic. Fair enough. There is a slight pitfall with that, in that my phone will pick up everything. Everything. I think one of the first recordings I did on my phone, when I went back and edited afterwards, I realised I had the sound of some cars going past in the background. Windows closed. We're not on a busy road or anything, but the one car that drove past was just a in the background. I also noticed a strange repetitive scratching sound, which I eventually identified as the sound of my cat licking her food bowl in the corner of the room, which my phone had still picked up. So yes, better, clearer, more thorough audio through my phone, but if someone shuts a door in another room of the house, you're probably going to hear it. If you live on a busy road, it's probably going to be a problem. So that's just something to bear in mind. Another thing you may come across or see often with people talking about audio is the idea of a pop filter. So essentially is a fine screen between you and your microphone that helps reduce the harshness of certain sounds. Obviously, I don't have one of those on my phone, and I think you can probably pick them up on Amazon really easily. Like, they're not expensive. But in this case, today I'm recording, I have a piece of aluminium armature wire from my sculpting supplies with an old pair of tights stretched across it, and that's just positioned in front of the phone. And that works fine. You don't need to necessarily throw money at things straight away. You can do things on a budget, particularly when you're just starting out and just trying something to see if it works. So going back to video, having talked a bit about audio, this was one of the biggest hurdles for me in a way. I mean, it makes sense. Biggest, pretty important thing for YouTube is how are you going to record your visuals? And something I got a bit frustrated with when looking up videos on or tutorials on how to start YouTube. How do YouTube? You quite often get people saying, oh yeah, a really good camera for a beginner is such and such, it's a Canon whatever, or somebody else something or other. I looked at these cameras, and yes, I'm sure I could go and look for something secondhand and it would be much more affordable. I wonder if you can hear the cat. Gigi is chasing ping pong ball in the background. There's probably noise in the audio now. When you're looking at those cameras, if you look at them new, they're not cheap cameras. I don't have a spare 500 quid to throw at a camera to try making videos. That's more money than I want to throw at something I'm just trying out. So although you get a lot of people saying, hey, this is a great starter camera, I didn't have a lot of luck when I was looking. I was hoping I could find something under 100 quid that I could get and record with. And perhaps there's probably cameras out there that'll do that, but when you're looking at all the lists of best beginner cameras for vlogging or whatever, that none of them are 100 quid or less. Cameras are expensive. And it would be really useful having a camera that you can just position wherever you want to be working on things and hook it up on a tripod, which will also be surprisingly expensive, by the way. That would be useful. I'd love to be at that point, but at the moment I don't have the spare money for that, so that's fine. You don't need to have a 500 quid camera to record for YouTube, as plenty of other videos will say. You can record on your phone. A lot of phones, a lot of modern phones, they're perfectly good at recording video. The resolution's not dreadful. They're at least 720p, which I think is fairly standard on YouTube. In my case, that doesn't work very well because my phone overheats if I record for more than 5 minutes at a time. and turns off the camera, which is oddly enough not helpful if you're trying to record a 3-hour painting process. So that left me kind of a bit torn, really. I didn't really want to try and record everything on my phone because it wouldn't work, really, unless I record in 5-minute or less chunks, which is not ideal, although I'm finding I can use it just to get different angled shots occasionally, or a little close-up, just a short additional clip. It's absolutely fine. But for me, I wanted to record colouring in a book, sitting and doing something for half an hour or an hour. Like I said, if I do a painting, when I want to record painting a dragon, that's something that's probably going to be a good couple of hours of footage. My phone can't handle that, so I needed an alternative. In my case, I went for a webcam, and I did choose to spend more money than you might on a webcam. If you just want a webcam to have a Zoom chat with someone you can't easily sit in a room with, you don't need to spend a lot of money. You can spend 25 quid and get a perfectly reasonable webcam. I opted to get a Razer Kiyo webcam, which was 60 odd quid, which was within my budget for getting something to record things, and I like it. It works. It's attached to the computer, so I can just use the OBS software to start recording and have the camera positioned over my desk, colour stuff in, sculpt things, do whatever, and that works really nicely, and I didn't have to spend 500 quid on a camera. It has its restrictions. One of the first things I learnt with a Kiyo was to turn the autofocus off. Autofocus sounds like it's going to be really useful, but actually I think it depends what you're trying to record. For me, recording a colouring page with autofocus just meant that it would periodically try to focus on the end of the pencil for no good reason. So the footage just has the camera occasionally going out of focus and back again, which was kind of annoying. So I turned it off, and that's fine. It's just a small adjustment to make. Another little camera thing that I learned, and I'd say is a tip that nobody else really mentioned, I've got my Kiyo mounted on a little sprung boom arm, which is clamped to my desk. Until you record working on the desk, you don't realise how much you actually shake the desk. Like, colouring in, you're rubbing a pencil back and forth over a book. That jiggles the table, which transfers all the way up the boom arm to the camera, and you get shaky camera footage. So when you're setting up whatever recording device you've got, if you can attach it to something that isn't the desk you're working on, I suggest doing that. It'll probably save you some time and effort trying to sort out a shaky camera. For me, I don't really have any other easy connection point at the moment, so that's something I'll have to work out in the future when I get an opportunity to rearrange my setup. But for now, I just try not to shake the table. I try. Mostly, I think I've been doing okay. I've gotten better now, I'm aware of it at least. Other times I just have to cut out the really shaky footage or apologise for it. But I don't think I came across anyone giving advice to starter YouTubers saying, hey, be aware of the fact that a camera on a nice long arm isn't necessarily that stable. It's probably going to be shaky. You should make sure you look at what your footage is doing while you're actually recording so that you can notice if it's shaking all over the place. Maybe they just thought that was obvious. Maybe I just didn't think about it. So let's see, that's a little bit about audio, a little bit about video, scheduling. Now, you tend to see a lot of advice about consistency when it comes to any sort of creative social media output. I do think that's pretty important. Certainly I know there are YouTube content creators that I watch on a regular basis, and I know which days they upload. So I know which day of the week I can sit there and say, oh, I should have a new video from so-and-so. And that's good. That keeps me watching because it's regular and I know when I'm going to have a new video to watch. So I can understand why people say consistency is important. I did also come across at least one beginner advice video that pointed out the fact that when you've just started, when you've got less than 50 subscribers, you don't really need to worry about it quite so much. You don't have a great pool of fans waiting for your latest video to come out at 4 p.m. on Monday because that's when you post. So if it's not ready, then don't worry about it. It's okay, you've got time. When you're just starting out, it's more important to produce the content than it is to fret about precise timing of the content. I do think that's true. And it's something I had to remind myself of. When I first started thinking about YouTube months back now, I took my time and I thought through what I wanted to do, and I thought about what kind of schedule I should use, and I considered my own energy levels and the fact that I've got other things that I want to be working on, and YouTube would probably take more time than I expect, so I should allow myself plenty of breathing room. And I said to myself, I will aim to do a video every 2 weeks. That'll be my plan. I'll go for a fortnightly schedule to start with. So I've got 2 weeks to film and edit any given video in and around whatever other art or work that I'm doing. And that's still a perfectly logical conclusion, knowing myself. So the first month of YouTube, the first video went up and I got super excited, and I was really enjoying exploring the editing process and just learning something new. That's a process I quite enjoy personally. So I got really excited, and I found myself thinking, gosh, surely everyone posts weekly. Like, if I only upload every other week, no one's going to look at my videos. I'll have to do every week. So I was daft and tried to do a video every week. And I managed 4. And then I realised that I was spending the whole week editing because there's so much to learn, and therefore it's a process that takes longer at the moment than it may do in the future when I've had more practice, just like anything does. And I was pushing myself too hard. I didn't have time to do other things. I was getting to the weekend and people were saying, hey, do you want to come out and do things? Because we're allowed to go out and do things. And I'd say, no, I've got editing to do. And I realised that that's all well and good if you've got to the point where you're established and you've got a whole bunch of people, you've got several thousand subscribers waiting to see your latest video. Pushing yourself to have that frequency of output and to keep feeding that community and growing that community, yeah, sure. You're putting in the effort and you're getting a very definite reward out of it. When you've just started and you've got a few subscribers because you've got some nice friends who are supporting you, but no one's really watching your videos all the way through or worrying too much about what you're doing, you can take your time. It's okay to start slow and just build up. I have a lot to learn about making videos and an awful lot to learn about editing videos. And I have a somewhat old computer that only just cooperates with the editing software that I'm using, and does sometimes just crash if I look at a more complex transition option. So editing's a little bit slow. And I do want to do other things with my week sometimes. I don't want to get myself in a position where I record a video and literally spend the rest of the following week editing it just in time to upload a video, and then turn around and record the next bit and start again. I would like to have breathing room between these activities. So I made myself go back to a 2-week schedule. Makes more sense, gives me breathing room, gives me time to learn. It's okay to have a 2-week schedule. I mean, you can tell I'm still convincing myself. It's one of those things that clashes with anxiety. The anxiety in my brain is saying, no, must do as much as possible, as fast as possible. otherwise won't get noticed. And I'm having to hold that back and say, nope, we're going to do this slow and steady so that we don't just run face first into burnout and completely crash. This does remind me of some other bits, just some things about YouTube that I learnt through the process of actually interacting with them all. I'm used to seeing the community tab on various channels that I follow. People putting up posts just saying, oh, sorry, this video is running late this week because I've got a cold, or putting up a poll or something. And when I decided to go back to a 2-weekly schedule to release my videos, having started with 1 week, I thought to myself, oh, that's fine. I'll just put up a little post. I'll use the community thing and make a post saying, yep, I'm going to calm down and go back to the 2-week schedule that I originally planned for myself, just so I'd have a comment on my channel to explain why there wasn't another video on the Monday, in case anyone was paying attention. Which is when I learnt that you don't get a community tab until you have 500 subscribers. I hadn't realised that was a milestone. There's a few things like that. You get a custom URL for your channel when you have 100 subscribers. You get the community tab when you have 500 subscribers. And you can't monetize your channel until you have at least 1,000 subscribers. I knew about that one from a tutorial about making a YouTube channel that I watched. So I was aware that that was a milestone I'd have to get to, and that's fine. It's a goal I'd like to reach, but this is still very much an experiment of, will I enjoy making videos? Will I settle into it? Is it something I want to keep doing? If I do get a following, brilliant. If I don't, well, at least I tried. And at least I didn't start by spending 500 quid on a camera. So yeah, there's some bits about YouTube that might not seem obvious when you start out, which you run into as you go along, and that's fine. I guess one of the biggest reminders I've had for myself in the first couple of months of YouTube is something that anyone who's done an art project, or any project that you've been really keen on, you've really put time and effort into and gotten quite attached to, anyone who's hadn't gone through that process will be familiar with how it feels when you present your finished thing and you're super excited about it and you're really proud with the work you've put into it and that interesting new thing you did halfway through and that transition you used and the new audio balancing you tried out, whatever it is, and you present it to the world and the world goes, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's it. Maybe it takes 3 days before anyone even watches your video, and then they watch 2.5 minutes from a 20-minute video, and that's it. It's very grounding. I think it's a hurdle probably everyone who does YouTube has to get past. When it's your project, you're very excited about it, and you're super keen, and you're really looking forward to a response. But when you're just one person putting out, frankly, a beginner video in the sea of videos that is YouTube, chances of getting a lot of attention are pretty slim. And that's just something you kind of need to have in the back of your head and be aware of. And just remember that just because you're super excited about your project doesn't mean anyone else is. But that's fine. The nice thing is the video's gonna sit there once you've made it. And yeah, it might take a few days for someone to look at it, might take a month before someone else looks at it, but it's still there for them to look at, and over time it might get a bit more interest. And in the meantime, you're going to keep making videos, and you're going to keep learning, and you're going to get better, and maybe the next one will just have a keyword you didn't use before and generate a bit more interest, or you'll mention it on your social media at a better time of day that week, and it'll get more responses. Because the internet is vast, and people are busy, and sometimes you just don't get clicks. And that's okay. So now I'm going to wrap up this video. You know, I'm still kind of amazed that I spent an hour colouring and I still only got about a quarter of this page done. Either I'm really slow, or these things just take time. I don't know. But I'm kind of happy with how it's coming along, kind of sticking with the sort of drab greens, the more autumnal tones. Hopefully next time we'll get it finished. I don't know if I'll do another time-lapse and voiceover, or if I'll go back to recording as a colour, but we'll see. Might depend how many clicks this one gets. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about things. If you want to hear more, or you want to offer a little bit of encouragement, by all means, hit the like button, even hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be super awesome and amazing, you could join my little band of patrons over on Patreon, who give me a lot of moral support to just keep trying things, keep going, keep making videos. Thanks again, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Really, Gigi? Meow. Indeed.